what's going on? Welcome to Gorilla and the Geek, the podcast for sweaty nerds by sweaty nerds. My name is Kyle the Geek, and I'm here with John the Ginger Gorilla. John,
What's
how
up?
you doing?
What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm very excited.
Yeah, this is our first podcast. We're going to be talking about some gaming, maybe some movie stuff here and there, some pop culture goings on, if there's ever anything that kind of relates to us. But mostly it's stuff that we're kind of nerdy about. John's the big gamer. I'm the big movie buff. We both kind of do the comic book thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I dabble here and there. Some days, more than others, but
Yeah. So basically, yeah, we just kind of wanted to talk about this type of stuff. We do it every day, basically, with one another. And we decided, why not just record it and put it out there into the ethos?
yeah, I mean, I find myself entertaining. I find Kyle very entertaining. So, like, what the hell, man? Maybe someone else will find us very entertaining.
Boom. And these episodes will probably be somewhere around 30 minutes long. But that's enough talking about the pod itself. Why don't we just get right into it, John?
Cool, sounds good. Do you want to do your news first or my stuff first?
We can go into mine.
All right.
So my topic is actually has to do with something that John and I are doing IRL tonight. So we're going to see the Joker tonight, or it's actually just Joker, no the. And there's been a lot of media attention to this film because it involves domestic terrorism. And before we actually get into the conversation itself, I'm going to say this. The side of the debate that I'm going to take for the sake of this conversation actually isn't my viewpoint. I'm just trying to present a different side because I know what side John falls on, and I kind of want it to be an interesting conversation, and we're going to go from there. So I want to talk about whether or not we should hold creators of both video games, television, movies, literature, etc. I want to know if we should hold creators responsible for the type of content they create, especially regarding violence.
Interesting. That is very interesting. I can see why you automatically knew my say on this because I've probably mentioned it time and time again. Given to the whole video game debate that's been, I mean, at least in the United States, has been going on since we were children, like years and years. I mean, probably since video games have come out and started getting like graphic and brutal. I mean, they probably have said it about the Oregon Trail. Do you know the Oregon Trail, Kyle?
Yeah, that's a classic.
I bet you someone out there was like, this game is like, people are dying of syphilis on the Oregon Trail. We can't have it out here. Can you imagine all these kids running around giving each other syphilis? It's going to just the demons are going to get into our children's minds. So I mean, I could go on and rant about that for like hours because I mean, obviously I don't believe that just because you make a game, which I would consider art in some sense, like a digital art,
I'd agree.
and you create this game and it happens to be violent. You create a movie, it happens to be violent. You create music, it has violent underlayings to it, or talking about a violent situation. That doesn't mean that you go and do that violence. And I think most humans understand that. Even the people who complain about it understand it. They just like putting that blame on someone else. I feel like a lot of times that they can't separate those two things. Like, I'm smart enough to separate it, but I don't think everyone else is, so we shouldn't allow those creators to do it. And I don't think that's fair. I want to hear your take though on this, playing the devil's advocate here.
So, the way I would approach this, if I was someone on that side of the fence that says that video games and films like this do kind of elicit a violent response or kind of trigger violent people to do violent things, the way I would go about discussing this is, do you believe that propaganda is something that we actually have to watch out for? In general, not just movies, whatever. Like legit news propaganda, like the Nazis used back in World War II, stuff like that. Do you believe that's real?
Yeah, I believe that there's probably there's definitely some of that out there.
Yeah, so the reason propaganda is dangerous is because it elicits a reaction out of people. It's very biased towards one specific viewpoint, and it's trying to spread that mindset towards people. I think that if you were to believe that video games and films and literature cause people to become violent, you would kind of think of it akin to that. You think of it as propaganda rather than just being flat out entertainment. And I guess, in a way, showing this type of violence, especially with main characters such as Joaquin Phoenix as Joker, excuse me, you do, in a sense, glorify this character and his violent tendencies for the sake of just making a movie. There really is no way to make this character not cool, especially because of how he's been portrayed within pop culture, especially the past 10 years since The Dark Knight and Heath Ledger's Joker. Everyone loves that. It's an iconic role. It's an iconic character. Probably just as beloved as Batman himself. And I think it's just kind of one of those inescapable things.
Why didn't you mention Jared Leto's Joker? I don't get it. Isn't that beloved and glorified?
I'm gonna be honest. I kind of forgot that he existed.
Like everybody should probably.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, no, I get what you're saying though. Like how it could also, you could think of it as a way of like, if someone has those demons in them, this could bring it out and almost normalize it for them. So I get
that's a big thing, normalizing.
People could take that side of the aisle, but I mean, then you're not gonna have any art, because I feel like every time you have art, so like, I was listening to this one conversation, and they were basically saying how, a lot of communities or great people, when they're wealthy and they're doing well, their art is very bland almost. It's the people who come from hardship and these troubles and squalor and people who are living in poverty that they can make this big art because they have so many more emotions and they have all this stuff to express through the art, right? But with that comes their demons, so they want to express that too. It's like their type of therapy. So although I do believe that, like, I could see how someone could be affected by it and maybe say, hey, oh, I saw this here, I could act like that. Like, that could be me. Like, it kind of almost in their head romanticized the fact of doing this evil deed or being or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I do think it's almost something that's needed, and I don't think you could ever actually stop. Like, even if everyone agreed, this is not probably the best thing that we should be putting out in the atmosphere. I mean, like, you could say that with a lot of media. Like, a lot of it probably isn't the best thing for our minds to see. Best things for our mental health, but we watch it anyway, we do it anyway. We all have those guilty pleasures or things that we do to our lives and in our bodies and stuff like that we know is bad for us, but we're going to take it in anyway. So why are we going to stop these people from being able almost to go through their therapy of expressing themselves through this art and stop their healing process because you think that someone is too weak, or you're not taking individual responsibility for your own mental health almost? Because that's how you could kind of think of it, right? Like, if I know, like, there's something fucked up with me, right? Now, given a lot of people who are fucked up don't know that. But if I know that there's something messed up with me, why would I should, like, check myself and be like, maybe I shouldn't watch this thing that might flip me over the edge. Like, if I was if I was going through depression, I might not want to watch a movie about, like, a breakup, and that might put me over the edge and just be like, yeah, there's no happiness in life, and so on and so forth.
And to that, I'm going to actually talk about my viewpoint on this, because that's kind of all I can say in regards to
aspect.
Choosing the other side of the argument. So I am a staunch believer in freedom of expression and freedom of speech within art. I think if you are to limit artists, and that includes filmmakers, game designers, writers, comedians, anyone that creates content, if you were to limit that, you would be causing irreparable damage to not just like pop culture or memes or all this other crap, to kind of the fabric of how we communicate as a society and how we view things. If we aren't allowed to talk about these really, really sour, terrible moments in human history and within human nature itself, I think that is a discredit to how we can move forward as a society. I think films like The Joker, while it may glorify, if you want to put quotation marks around glorify, this one domestic terrorist. It's actually, and I haven't even seen the film, but what I get from it is more so the story about a man who gets pushed too far by the world around him, rather than just a movie about there's this really cool domestic terrorist out there. You gotta go watch him. He's awesome. And a point I would use is, so I know you can't see me, but I am a black man. Am I not, John?
He is a black man.
And the N word is obviously horrendously offensive. However, when I watched Django Unchained, I wasn't incredibly pissed off at Quentin Tarantino, a white man, for putting more N words in that film than any other film in history. I saw him do that, and I went, wow, that really added to this film because I hated every single person who used it. I fell into the story. I didn't fall into hatred for the artist for making it. I also think that to limit these artists, I think you would just get worse content in general, and no one wants that. Also, if we are to limit the Joker or violent video games and stuff, we gotta start holding these news corporations the same way, with the same accountability. Because you can't tell me that a violent video game is going to cause someone to break out and become a shooter, while you're showing police chases, very graphic accidents, standoffs with the cops. If you're going to show that type of content on the news, on network television where anyone can go watch, rather than having to go drive out to a movie theater, spending $13.25 on a ticket and sitting down to watch a 3-hour film, I don't want to hear it. I think it's a bad argument.
Also, I totally agree with the whole news thing. That's a great point because I like when I sit down and I'll eat with like my family or something, and my mom or dad have the news on in the background in our kitchen TV. I always turn it off because every hour block of news, I feel like it's 5, 6 stories of just like there was a fire, this baby fell into a well, like just crazy, horrible, sad stories. That's like, oh,
If
those
it
poor
bleeds,
people.
it bleeds.
Yeah, and then there'll be like one story where it's just like, so and so beat cancer. Like, let's cheer for her for a
The
second.
kicker, yeah.
And then boom, or then, but like I feel like it's never like that's never the beginning, that's never the end. You don't leave happy. Like you leave thinking like, oh god, this world's a horrible place, and it's just so like, how are people gonna tell you that we have to limit our art when all you show in real life to people is this just horrible news? And like think about it, like for
That's
us,
to start someone's day, by the way.
true, like start and end, because a lot of people end the night with their news, like nightly news, right?
Yep.
But like think about it also, a lot of people, like older people, don't necessarily know how to get the news on their phone and stuff still, so or see the world in that aspect. At least us, like we could go find a good news article. Like I could go on Reddit and I could go to a news section that's all just happy news, right? And
Yeah.
I could get that influx in my life so I could realize that, the world isn't this messed up place. Where older people might be seeing it now and all they think is this world's horrible, this world is crazy, like look at what's going on in the news, and then they attribute that to whatever they want to attribute it to because they believe in somewhere in their mind that like this is making the country bad, this is making the world bad, this is doing it, this is doing it. And it really just empowers I feel like they could change this whole thing from the news being bad to whatever they want. So how are you going to tell us that we need to stop with music messages, stop with movie messages, stop with comics, stop with television, TV shows, stop with video games, when anyone could turn on their TV and watch the news? I think like that's basic cable packages. I think if you buy a TV, you could get that through the airwaves now, right? Like I don't even think you need a cable box. Like everybody gets the news. So how and like and these companies no one's saying like, hey, Channel 7, why is everything you put up just so horrible? And like, cause no, like they're like, hey, we're making money, but no one comes to them.
Nope.
So
Not at all.
It's, I mean, I guess that's our side of this.
Yeah, yeah. And if whoever is listening out there, anyone that does think the opposite from us, feel free to let us know.
Yeah,
tweet at us or DM us. I'll give my handle Well, let's give our handles at the end of the
Yeah,
at the end of the
we'll throw
podcast.
everything out at the end. I'll throw out an email if you guys want to send an email too. I have an email
Yeah.
open for it, and we could get all that.
Word.
So do you want to move over to some of our video game topics for this pod?
Yeah, please. I've been dying to hear what you got for us.
All right. So first one is one that is very near and dear to our hearts. It's the state of everyone's favorite video game, our beloved Fortnite. Now listen. If you're out there and you're hearing, and the first thing now you're hearing Fortnite, and you're like, I don't want to listen to this anymore, I very suggest that you continue to listen just because of how much passion is about to come out of mine and Kyle's mouth, right? You might not know Fortnite for a lick of it. Like, you might not know anything about this game other than people running around like as cartoon characters shooting each other or whatever. But the amount of passion that's about to go down is going to be something unpresented in any media that you might see all week. So,
well, now I have none of the pressure on my shoulders to perform.
well, no, I don't think it's. I mean, I know like where we're about to go with this, and I've changed my thoughts over the last night, and we've had. I mean, I know you were gonna wanna.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, let's get into it. Go ahead.
So, Fortnite season, for the people who don't know, Fortnite season 10, Fortnite season X, whatever you want to call it, has been probably the worst season, which me and Kyle will agree on, is the worst season in Fortnite history. Now, what is the season? It's just basically the theme of a couple months. They give a new battle pass. There's new skins. They update the map throughout the season, or at the beginning of the season. They change up the weapons. It's to keep the game fresh, right? So every couple months they change up the game to keep it fresh, so people keep playing. People keep putting money into it, right? Now,
that is a key phrase. People keep putting money into it.
yes.
Go on.
Now, this season started off on a very rough foot. So very first day, I have an Instagram post still up. Very first day I posted my stats, I had 7 wins. 7 wins. Now, given it was a whole day of gaming, I'm not gonna lie, but I had 7 wins, and I was like, man, this season's awesome. I think Kyle, I think you had that initial reaction too, right? How like the season was awesome. Like, oh, I love what they're doing. It's cool. Like, they're gonna update the map throughout the season. One thing we were both weary on was these things that they put in the game called mechs, which is basically a big giant robot suit. One person could get in and be a gunner, and the other person could be in it and be the person who moves it around. So basically like a walking tank, right? So this is my first point that I want to bring up of this state of Fortnite Season 10. The mechs ruined this season. Maybe single-handedly. Because this season may have been bad no matter what, right? Maybe with the gun changes or whatever we want to say of it. But I truly think the biggest part of it was this mech dilemma.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's putting something into a game that is game breaking to the point of no return. I cannot tell you the amount of games that I've tied to mechs, the amount of games that I probably could have won had it not been for a mech or brute. Now I know it's the official name of it. I don't know what the acronym is for because fuck those things. I don't need to learn about the acronym. Yeah, it's hard to explain for anyone that doesn't play Fortnite or any type of shooting game how horrendous this is. All right, so let's put it like this. Think of it as going to work every day, but every single day there's about 9 nails on the road that you live on. Now, while driving, you don't know where those nails are. You could drive over one. You could drive over none. You could drive over all of them. And then you're just fucked. And you go to your town and you're like, why are these nails always here? And they just go, we don't know. It's just how life is now.
Make it work. Work around,
yeah, work around it.
Work around change your driving so you don't hit those nails.
Yeah, it's the term game breaking is a severe understatement. And the worst part about these things was that the community went to the creators and we voiced our opinions on them for how long has the season been on?
2 months,
about, like,
maybe longer.
Oh,
I think it's like
longer, really?
I think it's like 2 months. I'm pretty sure every season is like 60 days. Like,
oh yeah, you might be right. So Even worse,
Oh
two
well, no, yeah,
months
no, no,
of
dude,
non.
it's definitely over because it's if you think about it, it's 10 weeks of challenges, right?
Wow. So
So
so that 10
almost like
weeks,
yeah, 10 weeks. God damn.
non-stop complaining on all social media platforms, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. And not once did they even explain to people why they should like. So they explain their reasoning as wanting it to be a better game for newer users. And while doing that, they kind of completely ignored their old fan base. So Epic put out a statement that basically told us that Brutes were going to stay in the game in order to make it more accessible to newer users. Their reason for doing so is that the user base has gotten so good at this game that it's very difficult. I'll be honest, it's very difficult to jump right in and play. Our friend Sean, who participates in my movie review channel, Geeks Weekly, he was a newer player. I think earlier this year is when he started playing, and it was hard. There was a big learning curve for him. But you know what? That's the price of gaming nowadays. If you are playing an online competitive game, you need to catch up with all the rest of the people. The reason that you're playing online instead of these story mode games is because of the competition. You want to go in there, you want to compete, you want to win because it feels good to win. What the brutes do is essentially give you the possibility of getting a participation award. And I'm someone who is very competitive, and now I haven't voiced this on here yet, but I'm a very competitive person. John knows this from IRL experiences and online experiences. I don't like to lose, but that just forces me to get better at the game. Now, if you think that brutes are a way for you to win easier, I get the frustration, but I also think it's not worth it because it's not going to make you better in the long run. And also, that is flawed logic because what's stopping the elite players from hopping in the mechs and killing the noobs anyways?
Also, the one thing I wanted to add to something you said earlier was the big learning curve thing. I don't think the game had much of a different learning curve when we first hopped on. Now, given the better players are better still, but if you think about it, what game did you play a lot before you came over to Fortnite?
2K.
2K. I was playing like UFC, just kind of playing some maybe Grand Theft Auto, just different games like that, where it wasn't these shooter games. Like, right? This was before I got real addicted to these shooters again. Call of Duty was at a lull. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
nothing was happening there, so it's not like we were playing that. So it's not like we came from a shooting game over. So we had these learning curves too, like a lot of other
We did.
gamers who jumped over when they came over Fortnite. Even if it was early on, the high levels weren't as high as they are now. It was still a big learning curve. And you know what I think the difference is though? Like, if you like the game, you're gonna learn to adapt with that learning curve. Just like any other game, like you said, any other competitive shooter online is gonna have that. Any other competitive game online is gonna have that big learning curve. And I don't think anyone's been like, after a day of playing a game online, been like, now I can hang with the top dogs of this game, because then the game isn't competitive. It's not really going to have these top dogs.
John, I've been playing 2K since 2010. To this day, I lose a majority of my online matches. It's just the way it is. People are just really good at the game, they figure it out, but I keep grinding to get better, and I've gotten better over the years, but I'm still not an elite player. I still choose to play because I love the game and because I'm not, like utter dog shit. But it's it comes with the character. Oh, it comes with the territory rather. I can choose to not play online, or I can choose to play online and push myself, and that's just the price of doing business. Sometimes you're gonna take a couple L's, and that's okay.
Now, with this, right? So, as Kyle said, a lot of the creators didn't like it. A lot of the big names. So, obviously, Fortnite and kind of blew up streaming. Fortnite, along with a bunch of these streamers that everybody knows of or heard names of, Ninja, Tim Tapman, Dr. Lupo, Nick Merckx, so on and so forth. If you're in the video game world, you probably know those names. Um, a lot of them started leaving Fortnite, right? And one thing I do gotta say kudos to is Epic and their balls that they got, right? Because
Yeah.
they just held it out. They were like, nope, mechs are in the game. Nope, mechs are in the game. All these big people are like tweeting at them. They're like, oh, you need to vault them. Since like week 3, right? Let's say latest week 3, right? They're like, vault them. They just held it out. They made little changes here and there. Didn't really get better. Held out. And then finally, everyone stopped complaining about them. And what happened, like, last week? All of a sudden, they're like, boom, someone put a virus in the mechs. They're exploding on impact, and the mechs are almost silently. I feel like there wasn't that much news on it. Like, no one was rejoicing
No, I
anymore
didn't even
because
see it.
it waited so long. It waited so long that everyone was like, whatever, like, I'm almost done with Fortnite. Like, for good. Like, that no one even was happy that the mechs left. Like, they were just like, whatever. And that update brought in so many new things to where now I think the game is so much more enjoyable because mechs aren't there, right? We said that last night when we were playing. Even though we weren't playing well, the game is so much more enjoyable because you're not fearing that whatever you're doing all of a sudden is going to get basically ruined by a cheat code.
Yeah.
But with that new update has come a lot of new different things, which is the matchmaking style and the aiming situation, right? So first, let's just touch on the aiming. They updated the aim assist for controllers, right? But apparently they put it on keyboard and mouse too, which I heard. They put a little bit of aim assist on there, which makes no sense. Because it was this whole thing. Now, personally, do I really think that we needed the update or the buff, whatever you want to call it? I don't think so. I don't know Kyle, how do you feel? Do you feel like this was a needed thing or no?
Absolutely not. I mean, I, I don't even think that aim assist is that big of a deal for controllers, to be honest. In the first place, I mean, I didn't really notice much of anything. I thought that if I was hitting my shots, I was hitting my shots. If I wasn't, I was completely missing. But that's kind of on me as the user.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like these good gamers who play on controller, they were good with their aiming, right? You just got good at aiming on a controller. Now, is it still harder than aiming on a mouse? Probably, most likely. You can't hit those finer tuned shots. You can't really, but it's something that's like my choice, right? Like, if I want to play keyboard and mouse, I'd play keyboard and mouse. If I want to play on controller, I'm going to play on controller. That's just like things that you got to take it's like roll with the punches. Like, if I'm going to play on controller, I know that my aiming is not going to be as good as these guys, so I need to make up for it with game skill, game IQ, things like that. So I just think that this fix is good, but also bad. Like, obviously, I kind of like it because it's a little easier for me to aim, but I feel like I'm getting hit with headshots left and right from just the craziest things. I don't know if you agree with that or you disagree, but
So what John's referring to is the fact that now he can walk across a spot like Loot Lake, which is a very hectic zone, and he can get hit with 3 shots that all hit for headshots, and he'll be down 180 health.
wow, way to really bring up that health quote from
That
yesterday.
that exact moment happened on stream, and that was the moment where I realized, oh, it's going to be a really long night. It's like a double-edged sword, right? I mean, to help out mine and yours aiming, awesome. Like, all right, cool, I'm hitting more shots. However, it's not necessarily even due to my skill. It's due to like a buff in the game. And again, I think a lot of this stuff just comes down to me wanting to be more of a competitive guy within certain boundaries, of course, which we'll get into in a little bit, I'm sure. I want stuff to be fair and equal. If I'm good enough to hit shots, I'm good enough to hit shots. If I'm not, I'm not.
Yeah, and so the other thing I was thinking about is like if they leave it like this, then I think we'll all just deal with it, right? I don't think any of us are
Yeah.
going to be like, this is the reason I'm leaving the game is because of that aiming buff. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal in the long run. Like eventually we'll all just get used to
No.
it. This is just going to be how the aiming system is. I'll learn that I can't run out like I used to be able to, and because I might get hit with those shots, I might have to throw up walls faster. Like you'll change your gameplay to fit this style of aiming and what's going to happen. So I don't think that's that big of a deal. Which we could move on to the next thing then that they updated in that last update, which is the
Which is
matchmaking
a
system.
very big deal.
Matchmaking system, which now I'm very confused about. Okay, so last night I left playing one way, and I played some games this morning, and I feel a whole different way. It feels like every day I play, I feel different about this game, and it's very confusing. I feel very bipolar, and I do not like it. So originally, when this update came out, let me give you a little background knowledge. I was like, this is great. It's amazing. They said they're adding bots, which I was like, that's confusing, but I'm going to roll with it and say it's a good idea. Kyle, what did you say?
Yesterday?
No, when they originally rolled out this update.
Oh, originally, I
Yeah.
mean, so my whole thing, which I didn't voice out loud, but my whole worry was that, all right, so if you have a system in which you get placed into matches with people that are your skill level, and you rise up with the people that you're skilled with, I guess, is at at a certain point, after so many wins, you're going to level up to a point where you're just against elite competition that you're not as good as. And that can go for basically everyone that isn't Tifu or Ninja. Like, if I get so many wins throughout a season, I'm just gonna get placed with these elite guys and never get a win again until the next season, and then it resets itself. I mean, that just kind of like, why wouldn't I just play the competitive game mode that they have? Then they've had in the game since like what, season 5?
Yeah.
And the scary thing, we'll get into what happened before. So you say what you thought the day of
Mm-hmm.
the announcement.
So I mean, my thought was it was like, oh, this is cool. Like they're gonna implement it in a well way. Because I'm always like, I try to think positive when it comes to this game. When they say new things, like, oh, okay, cool. So they're gonna probably put it in, and it's gonna be something like Call of Duty, where like, you're kind of playing with the skill levels that you're by, which isn't that crazy of a thing because if everyone's playing, you're kind of all at the same skill level. Like Call of Duty, I feel like I never played against people where it was like, oh, like they're so much better than me. This is ruining the game. Like I'm hitting such this elite level that all I'm playing is with these elites, and I don't like it anymore, right? Um, but that's not how it went. I mean, to that I think like I'm still very confused by how they're implementing this system. So what I'm confused about is one, what classifies you and what rank you're going by. Are they doing it by like your season level? Are they doing it by your season tier for the battle pass? Like how
I
do
didn't
they
even think about
classify
that.
you? Yeah, I don't think it's the battle pass one because that wouldn't make sense because you could buy those tiers, right? You can't buy levels, right? So your season level, do they do it by your account level, which is your overall level, right? We all have an account level that adds up at each season's levels, and it puts it together, right? So like, do they do it by that? Or do they do it by like your games that you've played recently, how many wins you've had, how many kills you've had? Like what goes behind it? They didn't tell us any of that. So that I think not knowing that is making people more anxious about the situation possibly. Like
Yep.
cuz how am I going to be classified? Am I going to be put up as an elite even though I'm not? I don't think I am. Like am I going to be put with like the bad kids and like just smash them and like take the fun out of the game? Isn't there anymore because I'm just playing at this level that I never played at before. I think that really became a big effect on the game, and I'm still confused to how it's being implemented because I say that because I've played and I've gotten dubs and I've smashed these kids. I'm coming in top 5 situations and I've won games and I feel good that day, like I'm playing well. Maybe I'm just making small mistakes. That's why I'm losing these games. And then there's days where, like last night, me and you were playing and it just seemed like every team that we came across was just better than us. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, it
can't,
did.
it was getting frustrating because like every time we'd fight someone, it would be a duo. And now, given I felt like we did have kills though too, so maybe we just weren't recognizing the people that we were beating. I don't know, and maybe we were just harping on the fact that we were getting smashed. But it wasn't even like we were just getting like beaten by these kids. Like, oh, good fight, guys. Like, I felt like we were getting smashed by kids.
No, John, they were cracking our cheeks open.
Yeah, like that. I
And
guess.
and then and then no, hold on. We're staying on this for a second, because and then we're without even realizing it, we're getting into lobbies with computer players with keyboard and mouse, and I don't care what side of the debate you lie on, where it's like, oh well, maybe keyboard and mouse players aren't that much better than console players. There is with no doubt in my mind that a keyboard and mouse player can play faster than I can. They just have the options to do it. That's just facts.
And anyone who argues that they don't, I don't understand. Because if you just look at, if you're a Fortnite person and you look at the Fortnite World Cup and how many people play on keyboard and mouse and made it to the World Cup, what, you'd probably say 90% of them? I would say
So
more,
I
probably
might say
more.
over.
Probably
I'd
more,
say
right?
over.
Because, I mean, I could name like probably 3 people who played on controller, maybe 4. And that's out of what, 100 people? So that's 96% right there, right? Quick maths. Um, so like, how are you telling me? And I would probably guarantee. Do you think more people play Fortnite on keyboard and mouse than controllers, or do you think there's
I would
more
think so.
controllers? I would say no. I would think there'd probably be more controllers. Think
You
about it.
think
All
so?
these kids, right? So average kids, normal kids who play the game, what are they playing on? Do you think they have a gaming PC? Do you think more kids have a gaming PC, or more kids most likely have a PlayStation 4 or Xbox?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good point.
I would have to say PlayStation 4 and Xbox. Fortnite's free. Every kid probably has Fortnite on their gaming system, right? Maybe that's not the only game they play. They might play Call of Duty. They might play Apex. They might play Red Dead. They might play Minecraft. They might play single player games. They might play multiplayer games, right? Whatever. But they most likely have Fortnite on there somewhere at one point, right? That PlayStation or
Yeah.
Xbox had Fortnite. They played it. So there's probably more controller players. And by that statistics, if there's more controller players, why aren't they making it to the World Cup, right? There's going to be people who shine. Nick Merckx didn't make it. Didn't even come close. Now, given obviously streamers aren't always the best like representation, Ninja didn't make it. Like Tfue barely made it. Like all these big name streamers didn't really make it. Or do the best. But like if you think of the numbers, the controller people didn't make it. So why like they're definitely better. Like the skill level's better. Like from keyboard and mouse to controllers. They need separate lobbies. And I've been saying that even with the arena mode, the competition mode, I think there should be 2 separate types of competition. There should be keyboard and mouse, and there should be controller. I think different play styles would come out of it too, because of what you could do on keyboard and mouse and what you could do on controller. Like right now, I feel like
And
control.
with that, I just want to say, I've been harping throughout this podcast about being competitive and wanting to face against people that are, that are real people and that don't have like a weird competitive advantage. And I think that while it's not as bad as the brutes, I think being a controller player playing against someone who is as good as you or better with a keyboard and mouse is pretty game breaking. And that's the issue. When it takes the logic out of you playing the game, that's when it becomes a genuine issue. It's someone having a competitive advantage over you that you can't overcome without, I mean, without literally changing the way you even play the game, like going from one system to a different one.
Also, I just realized something. If you think about how they just implemented this matchmaking system, those keyboard and mouse people are they're at, let's say, if you're on a 1 to 10 scale, right? Maybe they're at a 5 right now, right? Playing with keyboard and mouse. They're a keyboard and mouse 5, where I'm being a controller 5, right? I would say that
Mm-hmm.
the controller 5 is lower than the keyboard and mouse 5. But we're both
I
5, so
agree.
we're being matched up. So obviously they're more like a controller 7 or 8
Yeah.
when they're playing on their keyboard and mouse, where I'm a controller 5, so now I'm being smacked by these fools. Now, given that might even out if they keep the lobbies integrated like this, not because I'm thinking about it, like if you keep it integrated, then everyone's going to even out, find their like spot of where they're good, where they're not good. So then now the level of 5 and 5 will match up, where the keyboard and mouse 5 won't be a keyboard and mouse 5 anymore because it's integrated. So both 5s are the same. So I do think it might work out in the long run, but it's just one of those things that right now you can't have that in Fortnite. Like Call of Duty's coming out soon. I'm excited for Call of Duty. Kyle, I think
Same.
you're kind of right. You're getting excited for it. Like,
I,
um,
I am.
so like we played the beta. It was fun. It felt nostalgic. Like it brought us back to like those old Call of Duty days where like seventh grade I was listening to Lil Wayne playing Call of Duty. It was a weird time in life, but I did it every day and I loved it. And it brought me back to that, right? It brought me back to that fun. Yeah, I rage still, but it is fun. It is that's a good video game time. And now I think Fortnite needs to pull out all the stops, right? I think this is the moment that they have to decide, okay, are we going to make these people happy and keep making money, or are we going to lose our number one spot to Call of Duty? And I think that they need to figure that out within the game. And I'm not saying it's an easy test to do, right? I'm not saying we're just revert everything back to the way it was.
No.
I think they just need to figure it out. And I don't know. I don't have an easy answer of how, but it just comes. It puts so much pressure on their head for this season 11 launch, which I mean even comes out even closer to the Call of Duty launch now because they pushed it back. I just realized that. That's wild.
Oh wow, yeah,
So
that's
Fortnite
true.
is either gonna make it or break it. If this launch is not good, like if it does not blow people's hair back, I think they're gonna lose their number one spot to Call of Duty. Now I don't know how long that will run, but I think it might be for a decent amount of time if Call of Duty is as good as everyone's thinking it is.
I mean, yeah, especially because of what happened earlier this year with Apex, and then ultimately Minecraft for throughout the summer,
Yeah.
throughout the end of the summer.
Well, that's
Fortnite no longer has the undisputed championship in the gaming world. They owned it for 2018. That whole year was theirs. You and I had multiple conversations back then saying that this was the greatest game of all time because of what it did for the gaming community, what it did for the streaming community, and making everything so mainstream. And I still think it is the GOAT, but I do think that, especially in the tech world, if the GOATs don't adapt with the times, you could lose your spot. I mean, like look at Facebook. Facebook adapted with the times and became something different, but still ultimately, I think is it's still in the top three used social media platforms, but because they gear themselves more to the older generations, and that's who uses them now. It's not meant for millennials anymore or for people younger than us, even. Right? So I think that's kind of what Fortnite needs to do. And I'm also wondering now if they did the Call of Duty thing in terms of pushing the release date back for season 11. I wonder if they did it for the sake of competition to make sure that they get all the buzz while Call of Duty's trying to get their buzz as well, rather than Fortnite getting their buzz in, say, tomorrow when we thought the season was going to happen anyways, and then losing traction due to Call of Duty coming out later this month.
yeah, that makes. I mean, that does make sense of being having their buzz closer to Call of Duty's buzz to take away some of theirs, right? To like kind of take them out at the knees before like you get your buzz, you grow up, and then all of a sudden you're starting to fade. Like all that honeymoon stage of season 11 is fading off, and boom, Call of Duty comes out and maybe steals some of it away. That makes a lot of sense. Um, but I'm very excited to see what happens. To be honest, like either way it happens, no matter what happens, I'm fully addicted to video games now. I know that for
Same.
sure. Like I mean, and I'm just excited for these games to play and see what comes out. So I mean, I can't wait personally. I think season 11 is going to be a banger, but that might just be my optimism. I don't know how you feel, what you think is going to happen.
I think because of the negative publicity they got for the past 2 months, they're going to come out and knock our socks off.
I mean, and maybe it's just what we're hoping. And if they don't, I know both of us are going to be very disappointed.
Yeah.
But if they do, like I think it's gonna be a high then. Like there's rumors of a new map which could be epic. No pun intended. Um, and I just think that they have to, right? They have to come out. Like they need to like do something crazy. And if not, they're gonna take a hit. And then it's gonna be them digging themselves out of a hole. Um, Now I think we should leave it there for this
Yeah, I think we're
episode.
coming in on 45 minutes.
Yeah, which is awesome. I would like to say, but I think that was a very good conversation. I'm excited to see the future. Next episode, I think we'll have a lot more to talk about with this because it's gonna be close to those dates, if not past those dates. So
Yeah, and we'll be able to have seen Joker. We'll
Yeah.
be within the Oscar movie season,
Mm-hmm.
so there's going to be maybe some more controversial topics to talk about. Do you want me to just close this out?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, so let's keep the conversation going. If you if you have any comments to make on these conversation topics that we had, you can always check in on John's streams on Mixer. It's just Ginger Gorilla, right?
Ginger Gorilla on Mixer.
And what is your Instagram and Twitter?
Instagram is Ginger Gorilla Gaming, and Twitter is just Ginger Gorilla.
You can follow me on Twitter at Buff Charmander as well as Instagram, which is also at Buff Charmander. You can check me out on YouTube for my video analysis of analysis
Analyses?
analyzations of film. um, it's Geeks Weekly on YouTube. You can follow the Geeks Weekly page on Instagram, which is Geeks Weekly _ And yeah, that'll do it for us here today on the first episode of Gorilla and the Geek. Thank you all very much for listening. Uh, I've been Kyle,
And I'm John.
and we'll see you again next time.
Peace.